A while ago, we talked extensively about Wikileaks, and I told you that I believe Wikileaks was acting in the interests of Russia and of the Trump campaign during the 2016 presidential election and campaign that took place. I made it clear that it's possible that Wikileaks and Julian Assange didn't know that they were receiving documents from or in some way furthering the interests of Russia in a pro-Trump way. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. As a reminder, the video has now been removed, but Julian Assange was once asked in an interview about this. He said, "Our source for the leaked documents about the DNC, our source is not a state party, so the answer for our interactions is no when it comes to whether Russia was their source." Now, of course, the way he worded it, I believed, was significant. He said, "Our source is not a state party," which could mean two things: that it is someone that is working on the behalf of Russia and feeding information to WikiLeaks. It's also possible that WikiLeaks just didn't know who their source was, and they claim not to know who their sources were. And that's why I was doubting this attempt at separation between Russia and WikiLeaks that Julian Assange attempted, which is, on the one hand, WikiLeaks maintains they don't know who their sources are, but at the same time, they were saying our source on these leaked documents definitely isn't Russia. Well, if you don't know who your sources are, how do you know who it isn't? That was weird. We now have a blockbuster bit of news. I mean, total bombshell that blows the entire Trump-Russia story wide open. U.S. intelligence officials, number one, had previously identified the intermediaries that Russia used as a sort of conduit to get information to WikiLeaks, but we now actually have connections, proven connections, that WikiLeaks was in direct contact with Donald Trump Jr., direct contact with Trump Jr. The contacts are interesting, not necessarily because of the degree of coordination that existed. I'll talk about that a little bit. But it's most interesting because it completely eliminates any doubt that WikiLeaks was acting in the interests of Russia and of the Trump campaign. Let's start with this tweet from Donald Trump, which this was released by Donald Trump Jr., okay? And what basically happened is that as soon as this story broke yesterday, he kind of tried to get ahead of it by showing the chain of messages that he had with WikiLeaks. And the first one that I have on the screen here, it's the WikiLeaks Twitter account asking Donald Trump Jr. to find out about the website putintrump.org. And Donald Trump Jr. replied to WikiLeaks saying he'd look into it. Okay, no big deal. WikiLeaks suggested to Trump Jr. later that they confidentially leak a year or more of Donald Trump's tax returns to them, sort of WikiLeaks becoming more bold in their request to Donald Trump Jr. And WikiLeaks pitched this idea of, hey, everybody's talking about your dad's tax returns. What if you leak some of the tax returns to us? The way WikiLeaks pitched it was as follows, where they said, hey, Don, we have an unusual idea. Leak us one or more of your father's tax returns. If we publish them, it will dramatically improve the perception of our impartiality. That means that the vast amount of stuff that we are publishing on Clinton will have much higher impact because it won't be perceived as coming from a pro-Trump, pro-Russia source, which the Clinton campaign is constantly slandering us with. Let's keep that up just for a moment, Pat. So the defenders are saying that this account is not admitting that they are a pro-Trump, pro-Russia source. They are saying very clearly, the Clinton campaign is slandering us with being a pro-Trump, pro-Russia source. But look at the earlier part. It will improve the perception of our impartiality. So there are people who are seeing this and saying there's nothing to see here. It's merely WikiLeaks acknowledging that they are seen by some as a pro-Trump, pro-Russia source, but that they're really not. This is language that makes it very clear that they are asking for Donald Trump Jr.'s help to take attention away from the growing realization that many had, that they are functioning as a conduit to ideas and leaks that would benefit and did benefit both Russia and Trump. Also, the WikiLeaks account suggested to Donald Trump Jr. that if it doesn't go well on election night for Donald Trump, that they should contest the entire election as having been rigged, make a big stink about the election results, and ultimately Donald Trump won but still pushed the entire rigged election narrative, saying that 3 to 5 million people voted illegally for Hillary Clinton, that he would have won the popular vote in addition to the electoral vote had it not been for a rigged election with all these millions of people voting illegally or twice or being bussed here or there. And that is exactly what Russia wants. I've said this before. It's not specifically about Trump wanting Russia wanting Trump, rather, Freudian slip there. It's not specifically about Russia wanting Trump to be president only or exclusively because they think that Trump will pass laws that would be good for them. A lot of it is they saw Trump as the incompetent, manipulable fool who would create chaos. He would throw the American democratic system into chaos and potentially even delegitimize it, period. And that's why Russia would have an interest and would have this idea of saying, hey, say that the election was rigged, which is exactly what Donald Trump did after winning the electoral vote, but of course losing the popular vote in November of 2016. When I read the original story about WikiLeaks asking Don Jr. to tell his dad, don't concede if you lose, the first thing I thought of was when Donald Trump said, or refused to say, I will definitely concede if I lose. He said he would evaluate it, and that just rings so true to what it was that WikiLeaks was suggesting that they do. And then we come to the example that really shows, at least to some degree, that the Trump campaign was playing ball with WikiLeaks. On October 12th of 2016, the WikiLeaks Twitter account asked Donald Trump Jr. to have Donald Trump Sr., his dad, tweet about their new John Podesta email leaks. And 15 minutes later, Donald Trump did exactly that. Byron Tao from the Wall Street Journal pointed this out on his Twitter account. He actually put up the side-by-side from the report about what we've learned from WikiLeaks and Donald Trump's eventual tweet. And only 15 minutes after WikiLeaks suggested to Donald Trump Jr. that they tweet about these leaks, Donald Trump sent out a tweet saying, quote, very little pickup by the dishonest media of incredible information provided by WikiLeaks. So dishonest, rigged system. 15 minutes. 15 minutes. And this was effectively similar to what we saw with that meeting with Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya in Trump Tower, 2 hours after Paul Manafort and Jared Kushner and Donald Trump Jr. met with the Russian lawyer in Trump Tower, the meeting where she came promising incriminating dirt on Hillary Clinton. Trump took to Twitter and tweeted at Hillary, how long did it take your staff of 823 people to think that up? And where are your 33,000 emails that you deleted? Just hours after the Trump Tower Russian lawyer meeting. WikiLeaks is simply not an unbiased clearinghouse of information. They are very, very far from that. And this isn't a value judgment that I'm making, right? It's not an indictment of everything that WikiLeaks has ever released. All this means is WikiLeaks is a partial actor that worked during the campaign to further Russian interests vis-a-vis trying to get Donald Trump elected. You can interpret that however you want. You can make whatever value judgment of that you want, but it is beyond denial at this point. And I would add, I want to remind you that Trump-appointed CIA Director Mike Pompeo previously testified that WikiLeaks is a, quote, non-state hostile intelligence service. We now have clear communication between this non-state hostile intelligence service and the presidential campaign of the current president of the United States. That escalates the current investigation being carried out by Robert Mueller significantly. And the major takeaway that I have for you is, do not be tricked into sort of understating the significance of this. Donald Trump Jr. received a suggestion from WikiLeaks and went directly to Donald Trump. And Trump did exactly what Assange or WikiLeaks or Russia wanted him to do. Trump complied within 15 minutes and tweeted out a promotion of WikiLeaks' latest John Podesta releases. There is no point at this, there's no way at this point to credibly argue that Trump Sr. had no idea. And I am warning you now, the right and Trump Jr., they're writing this all off as nothing, but it is not nothing. This is evidence of WikiLeaks and the Trump campaign coordinating via Twitter direct message. They are saying, hey, listen, we turned everything over. They being Trump Jr. and his attorney. We turned everything over, so therefore there's nothing to see here, which is a fallacious argument, right? That's like saying, I didn't hide the fact that I murdered someone, therefore there's nothing concerning about the fact that I murdered someone. It doesn't work, okay? And what's next is, Donald Trump Jr., he was a low-level unpaid part-time volunteer for the Trump campaign. He wasn't authorized to speak to WikiLeaks on our behalf, and anyway, the contacts mean nothing whatsoever. And the response from Assange is riveting. Julian Assange put out a series of tweets where he said, to begin with, I cannot confirm the alleged DMs from Donald Trump Jr. to WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks does not keep such records, and the Atlantic's presentation is edited and clearly does not have the full context. Do you understand how insane that statement is? They don't keep records, but Atlantic's presentation is edited. If you don't keep records, are you just going from memory about how the conversation went? How is that even remotely credible? Then Julian Assange went on to say, WikiLeaks loves its pending publications and ignores those who ask for details. Trump Jr. was rebuffed just like Cambridge Analytica. In both cases, WikiLeaks had publicly teased the publications. Thousands of people asked about them. Assange went on to say WikiLeaks can be very effective at convincing even high-profile people that it is in their interest to promote links to its publications, which of course is kind of in a thinly disguised way saying, yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise if we convinced Trump to tweet out about what we put out there. And then lastly, Julian Assange tweeting, WikiLeaks has such chutzpah that it allegedly tried to convince Trump Jr. to leak his father's tax returns and his own Russian lawyer meeting emails. He did. WikiLeaks appears to beguile some people into transparency by convincing them that it is in their interest. Although, of course, it is WikiLeaks that lacks transparency, saying on the one hand, we have no records of these communications, but we can tell you that the ones that have been published aren't accurate and lack context. On the one hand, they say, we don't know who provides us with the information that we release. But at the same time, they say, but we can assure you that it wasn't actually Russia. And this is part of a long list of contacts with WikiLeaks from the Republican Party. We know that Congressman Dana Rohrabacher met with Julian Assange, offering a deal to potentially absolve him. We've learned that Cambridge Analytica reached out to WikiLeaks and offered to organize their hacked emails. We also know that Cambridge Analytica is part of the Russia probe investigation. And then from the Paradise Papers leak, remember those, covered them last week, that confirms that this Robert Mercer used dark money to fund his efforts to sink Hillary Clinton's campaign, and it's all being written off as some nothing burger, even though we are now able to connect dots that we didn't even know existed. We're living in a historic moment, right? I mean, it's sort of axiomatic to say we are witnessing history. Of course we are. Everything we witness becomes history. But I believe that what we are seeing right now is going to become a very notable part of American history at some point in the future. And, fortunately, the real patriots aren't getting distracted by this. They're busy defending accused child sex assaulter Republican Roy Moore. But we'll talk about the latest allegations there coming up a little later. Send me your thoughts about this. I'm on Twitter at @dpakman. Show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. The video you just finished watching was made possible by you through the membership program. You can sign up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. We are viewer-supported independent media. You can use the coupon code IVoted17 for a 40% discount off of your membership.